Hello folks, welcome back, hope you're doing well. So welcome back to another One Piece review, this time recovering manga chapter 1158. Now, I think with this chapter, I think it's safe to assume the reveal of the God Valley incident, because we went from the interaction with Rocks, Roger, and the hype of the Kuja pirates, aka Shakuyaku. Now, Oda's given us the birth of Shanks and Shamrock, so I mean, come on, like I'll get into that. If part of me feels like if Oda doesn't follow up with a name and a face reveal of Shanks and Shamrock's mother, then part of me feels like this is kind of Oda being petty. But even if that's the case, I can't say I blame him fully. But I'll get into that. I'll get into that. Though I'm going to be brutally honest, despite the fact we got a Rocks and King Harold fight, quote unquote, in this chapter, the outcome wasn't really much in doubt. Oda is being very smart of how he's handling this. But I'm going to be honest here, the biggest reveal and takeaway from me is the reveal of what we got on the cover story, which that speaks volumes to me and is actually a good thing. So let's get into that with the Yamato cover story and the cover page. And honestly, this kind of blew me away, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. The grave I thought was Ushimaru Shimatsuki. So apparently that grave and gravestone belongs to Kazuki Moria, and my reaction is probably the same as yours when seeing this. Wait, Kazuki Moria, what the? So it looks like Oda is tying in yet another loose end into Wano, into the lineage of Wano, but it's the former Gecko Moria, possibly being connected to the Kazuki clan. But if that's the case, boy, it's late, but Oda is kind of like tying back something that we saw during the Oden flashback. We know Moria clashed with Kaido. The first question that comes to mind is, how the hell did Gecko Moria why did he come to Wano in the first place? Well, now I think we have our answer. Did Oda have this in mind during the Thriller Bark? It seems like far-fetched. Did he foreshadow this during Thriller Bark? Because that's when we first learned about Wano. So I don't know, and it makes sense. The other thing that comes to mind here is, and this goes back to what I said about Teach and the Shishibukai, and I did bring up that Gecko Moria is another former Shishibukai that got affected by Teach. So let me elaborate. We know in the anime, literally in the recent episode, Caribou found Katarina Devon and Van Oga. We know where that's going, okay? Caribou is a fanboy of Teach. That was revealed in the anime. Also, I kind of wonder, with Katarina Devon placing her hand on Saturn and saying job done, is that all Katarina Devon needs to assimilate someone's form? Because we know she has the power of the nine-tailed fox. So is that how it's done? Because we know she also took the appearance of Absalom, even though quote unquote he was dead. So that's one thing that comes to mind here. So if this is lining up with Teach and what Caribou is about to tell him, or has already told him, is this going to bring Teach to Wano? This is probably more likely going to happen during the cover story, because I can't see it happening in real time, just because Oda's going to have Teach in some way, shape or form have some type of impact on Elbaf. I feel it. There's way too many connections now, especially with Zebek being revealed as the father of Teach. And I don't feel that it's going to happen in real time, so it's either going to happen in this cover story or it's going to happen like off screen. So, but is this going to lead to Gecko Moria meeting up with the alliance with Yamato, Ulti and Page 1 and them going after Teach themselves? Remember, Yamato has a connection with Ace. I'm curious as if Yamato knows about what happened involving Teach and Ace, because Teach is very much responsible for Ace getting captured and then executed. So I'm pretty sure if Yamato knows about that, it's going to be a personal matter for Yamato, but also for Gecko Moria as well, because like I said, he's also another former Shishibukai that got attacked and that got affected by Marshall D. Teach. And he's not the only one, so that's the other thing that comes to mind. Like I said, it's very smart for Oda to tie this in. Granted, I guess it's better late than never, but yeah, it's kind of out of left field, considering that I thought this grave was going to be Shimatsuki Ushimara. Boy, were we wrong. So, and the most out of pocket, out of left field reveal just got revealed, and I think it's the biggest takeaway and the biggest reveal of this chapter. So let's get into this chapter, and we start off at the Ora Jackson with one of the biggest simps for Shakuyaku, aka Shaki, being Roger, and he's dejected because he knows what's up. So they hear about Shakuyaku stepping down as the captain of the Kuji Pirates, but they also find out she's also pitching tent in Rock's Pirates territory, literally Pirate Island. So he's petty about that. Now, we also come to find out why he's petty, because before we go to that panel, we see Scarpa asking Rayleigh, hey, is it just me or has Roger been in a bad mood ever since you spoke? So we get into why that was. So it's obviously about Shakuyaku. So, because first off, Roger says he wasn't going to say anything to the crew, but I figured I should talk to you in one-on-one. Like I said, I love how intuitive Rayleigh is about his captain, because he's like, was this during our last fight with the Kuji Pirates just before she quit? And Roger is like, damn right. But then he discovered the love letter that Rayleigh got from Shakuyaku. It says, come make me yours, signed by Shakuyaku. Two and two together and realize that Shaki has the hearts for Rayleigh, as if that was ever up for debate. I have to say that Rayleigh has the will of, unlike anybody else we've ever seen in the story, because he said, I'd be lying if I said that I just don't want to be tied down. But Roger's like, oh, well, I do. So we know how Roger is. But Rayleigh, he's loyal to he's either loyal to his Sensho, or he really has a will of a stone, and he's not moved by Shakuyaku, which is kind of hard to imagine. But this kind of got me to think about, hypothetically, how Zoro might be in this situation, given I think Zoro would react the same way, but I'm not so sure, because first off, let's hypothetically say that Boa Hancock tomorrow would open up a bar. We know how Zoro loves alcohol, right? So I don't know. So I mean, we know through his interaction with Queen, Zoro isn't completely emotionless. I don't know. Hypothetically, do you think Zoro would have to be able to do the same thing? Luffy won't have a problem because we know how he is, which puts him above Roger in that category. I do like the fact we are getting different sides to Roger here, but let's be real here. Even though he's a mad simp for Shaki, he's going to find someone himself, because we know there's a character named Ace. So I'm just going to throw that out there. So, but with this, Roger's not giving up. Instead, in fact, he's doubling down. He's like, you know what? Let's go to Hachinosu. We're going to invade Rock's territory. So if you're keeping score, this chapter starts 2 years before the God Valley incident, and by the end of this chapter, we have 1 year before this God Valley incident takes place. So 40 years ago, we're going to the Holy Land of Merijoa, and in walks Figurland Garling. And I'm going to start off with a hot take, because I'm pretty sure Figurland Garling did the deed with the unnamed mother of Shanks and Shamrock while he was there, because he did mention he was at God Valley, and he mentions that to the Gurusei here, like, we could use that land because there's a lot of resources, but there's an outrageous discovery, and it was a completely unexpected find that the Great One would be pleased with, referring to Imu, I'm sure. So that's how God Valley came into a target. So that's kind of cool. That detail's been added. Because Garling's pretty much, I strongly urge you to hold the next turn at God Valley. Of course, we know what happens, but I'm wondering if Oda's going to show us what's at God Valley in the first place. So hopefully we'll get that. I wouldn't be surprised if we do. So we go from there and we cut to Shaki's rip-off bar at Hachinosu, and everybody's in a single file. They're being organized here from Shakuyaku's will of dominance. They're all taking the turns of getting the chance to meet Shakuyaku, but I do like how Shakuyaku responds. I'm not going to personally cook for people like you. We find out why she made the rip-off bar in the first place. We know who she's waiting for, who she wants to find her. Now, this is the key immediate aspect that I love. And I have to say, this interaction here was kind of like left field and a lot of fun, because we get Roger bursting in like nobody's business. Like, it's Rock's territory, but he's here to see Shakuyaku. But it's Rock's territory. You got the whole Rock's Pirates there. I don't see Kaido in this picture, but obviously, I guess Kaido's the only one immune to Shakuyaku, or at least not right now. We see Roger here, and I love how Scott is in the background. Hi, Shaki-chan. Does that remind you of anyone? But then we get a face-to-face between Zebek and Roger, and it kind of looks like a friendly rivalry because they're fighting over Shaka Yaku, but we know who's going to win that battle. And I love the situation because you see a group of pirates laid out by the Roger pirates, laid out by Roger. Newgate is done with this. He's like, I'm out. It's too noisy here. And you got the comment that said, pay for everything on Newgate's tab. And Newgate's like, nah, just leave it on rocks. Like, he's out of this. He's like, I'm done. Rayleigh doesn't even show up at the bar because that's the first thing that Shaki asked about Roger. Hey, where's Ray-san? And then in comes Gloria Soa like a simp, ultra simp as she is. In comes Gloria Soa jumping, launching at Roger. Roger reveals he's not into lovey-dovey women that throw themselves at me, which Gloria Soa actually calls him out on because it's like, wait, but if Shaki asked to be different, that makes no sense. This whole scene's absolutely ridiculous, and you got Roger, like, I kind of like how he has respect for Newgate even at this point because, like, hey, isn't Newgate here? I want to drink with him. Linlin's like, nah, he left. But when Roger tells Shaki Rayleigh isn't feeling well, so he's said to stay on the ship. And I love how Oda's adding more dimensions to Shakiyaku's character even back then, because as much of a goddess as she is and how she has the will to make legends like Rox and Roger bow at her feet, even she has a weakness for Rayleigh, and she obviously has an adorable side because she faints, because she passes out, and this time it's not due to Conqueror's Haki, it's love sickness, and Gloria Soa is the one that actually revives her. So I thought that was kind of ironic and super hilarious considering how things were reversed 2 chapters ago. But we get ultra serious because even though Shakiyaku rules and showed that nobody fought on Pirate Island, as long as she's there, we know that's not going to last because an instinct by the name of God Valley is about to go down. Speaking of simps, we go to King Harold, and I have to be honest, at this point, Harold is pretty much a simp for the world government. We get a clash between King Harold and Zebek, and Zebek completely calls out King Harold here, even though, and this takes place in the realm of the dead in the underworld. Ironic, I'm sure, considering that's where this flashback is being told. You see Haradine and Loki are in the background seeing all this go down. A clash between Zebek and King Harold, their father. Keep this in mind because I'm going to bring something up by the end. So, of why I don't think there's anything to worry about as far as the God Valley incident being shown. So Zebek is calling out Harold here because he's saying like, oh, they got you wrapped around their finger. And King Harold's like, I was torn. I kind of would have been more sympathetic had we seen how torn he was. If this is where I feel like Oda could have... Now, granted, he could show us something down the line before King Harold rips his horns off his head. But I kind of wish that Oda did reveal something. And Oda can document this and narrate this as being a quote-unquote stalemate that had no conclusion. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is a moral L for King Harold. Let's not beat around the bush here, because everything that Zebek is saying here is 100% spot on, to the point where I really want Ida to step up and actually slap the shit out of King Harold and slap some sense to this guy. Because remember what he said a couple of chapters ago in this backstory. He literally says we can accomplish our dream with uniting with the rest of the world without abandoning our warrior pride. What is King Harold doing here? Something's going to happen where Ida steps in. That's kind of where I think this is going. Because we do see Ida in this chapter, but we saw how Ida was like kind of being very like quirky in the previous chapter, but I want to see that serious side come out of her again and just really knock some sense into this guy. He's like, what happened to your warrior's pride? So we get kind of a back and forth here where Harold strikes at Zebek, but Zebek strikes back. I like how Zebek kind of understands like Harold's situation. Like, he knows what he's doing, but he's calling him out because he's an idiot, because he's trusted in the world government, which is, how can you trust them when he's already seen what they're capable of? It's all about bringing the Elbaf into the world government, and I feel like that's going to cost somebody their life on Elbaf. That's the way I feel. I get the feeling that Ida is going to be a casualty of this. So it's either she becomes a casualty and something bad really happens to her to make King Harold snap, or what I said at the beginning of this flashback with Ida being introduced and Ida still alive, and technically she could be Mosa, who's been communicating with Loki all this time, and she could be the one revealed as Mosa to actually be revealed to be down in the realm of the dead. I say that because, so I'll get to that in a second, but Oda reveals there's no true conclusion with this battle, but this unorthodox friendship come to an end. But these two, the two will not meet again for some time. So keep that in your mind here. So despite the timeline of events, Oda's saying this is not the last time they'll see each other. Then we see Loki reading in the newspaper about a day of a certain incident. Ida's the one that says, he isn't coming back, Loki. And at first Loki's like saying, shut up. But then Ida kind of like offers him a drink and he kind of warms up and says, okay. So I like that. This is what I meant a second ago by, this could be the case of Mosa being Ida and being in the realm of the dead. Because we see him warming up and we know he's communicating on friendly terms with this Mosa. Granted, we don't know who that is. Like I said, this is gonna end terribly, and Ida's gonna be a casualty, which would be horrible, but it would make sense on why King Harold completely flipped the script and just ripped the horns off his head, or it just has something to do with him just losing all perspective of who he is, which would be really bad for King Harold. Or it's a classic case of Ida doesn't die and she's technically still alive. And that could play into the reconciliation of Loki and Haradin. So we cut from the brothers Haradin and Loki, then we cut 1 year before the God Valley incident to where Shamrock and Shanks are born, literally on God Valley. So this is what I mentioned at the beginning about, this is a case of, because Garling did mention that he did visit he was at God Valley. So I'm just saying he could have easily did the deed while he was there. We end the chapter with Shanks' mother. We see the twins, both of them, Shamrock and Shanks, being born. That's how Oda decides to end the chapter, even though she's the badass goddess who made legends like Rox and Roger bow at her feet. Even she has a weakness and a soft side because she looks completely dejected. Look at that face, bro. That's a face of mad disappointment that she didn't get to see the race on. But I'm sure things are going to work out in the future. And it's because they look. So this backstory went from hyping up King Harold to hyping up the origin of Rox and the formation of the Rox pirates, to also interacting and blending in the hype of the Kuja pirates plus the Roger pirates and their involvement. Now we're including the birth of Shanks and Shamrock. So there's nothing to worry about if you were having concerns that Oda wasn't going to reveal the God Valley incident. I think it's safe to say Oda will. It's just one of those things where Oda's tying up a mystery of the past that a lot of people want to know about, that Oda is bundling together with this backstory, which granted is very smart, because when else is Oda going to do this with an arc with as much historical significance as Elbaf and connected to something with just as much historical significance as the God Valley incident. So Oda can't push this off much further, so it makes sense of why he introduced Rox into Loki's story. I think deep down, once he did that, we kind of had an idea this was where it was leading. The timeline of events doesn't lie. We're 1 year before the God Valley incident. There's no way Oda's not going to show this, especially with Oda narrating the fact and documenting this, even though they clashed on Elbaf, that was not the last time they would see each other. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't get more of a exchange between Harold and the Gorosei, because remember, St. Mars was the one that initiated the order. Like, tell Elbaf, the warriors of Elbaf, to kill Rox. Now, granted, Harold tried to do that, and it didn't get accomplished. So, is King Harold going to have a direct involvement in that scenario, in the defeat of Zebek? But it's not like, it's like kind of like a stalemate at this point, so either something changes, or Zebek is clear, or something else happens involving Emu, to where that's where Harold steps in. But there's a lot of theories that go around and around here, and we can speculate all we want, but Oda's going to reveal that in due time. So I said at the beginning that a big chunk of me feel like the reason that Oda showed this, now it depends on the follow-up here, because Oda did showcase Shanks and Shamrock, and I could see Oda being petty, but I can't blame him necessarily, because I'm sure Oda knows and he saw the criticism that complaints that a lot of people have that clearly do not think before they post or tweet, or don't have brains in general. Because if this is Oda symbolically giving a fuck you to all the people that they just pretty much bitched and moaned and cried about when Saint Fingerland Garland was revealed in the anime to have blonde hair and not red hair, because it doesn't fall in line with the headcanon or fanfic, and completely overlooking the fact that a child is composed of the genetics of two people, not just one. Enter Shamrock and Shanks' mother at the end of this chapter, who one resident mentions, oh, they have red hair just like you. Jinkies, by golly, what a revelation. Here you go. You got Shamrock and Shanks' mother being shown for the first time. Now, but by that logic alone, I hope Oda isn't doing this out of pettiness, because as a fan of Shanks, who is one of the most beloved and most popular characters, not in just One Piece, but I think it's fair to say in shonen and fiction in general, I would hope that revealing something like Shanks' mother is kind of a big deal. So I hope we do get a face and name reveal, just out of respect for Shanks, because I would think Oda would want to show something like this, especially when Oda's incorporating all these mysteries, all of the past that we've already been having for so long, and he's blending them into this one huge backstory. Before, my thoughts were, how much of an involvement does King Harold have with this backstory as far as the God Valley incident? But with these reveals about the Kuja pirates, about Shakuyaku, granted it's great, and also with the birth of Shamrock and Shanks, like I said before, what the hell does Loki and King Harold and Haroldine have to do with any of that? Because they weren't present. So yeah, you see where Oda's going with this. If Oda's taking liberties with this backstory, and Oda isn't going to do, and you don't think that Oda's not going to do the same in the current timeline of events, especially with Elbaf, in my opinion, being a complete major stepping stone to the end game. Listen, like, Oda wasn't going to wait much longer to reveal this anyway, because I think deep down we all know whatever happens at the end game is going to supersede and surpass the God Valley incident. It's just a natural order of progression here. So yeah, if Oda's going to reveal this much and take liberties with this backstory, I fail to see how Oda isn't going to do that with what's going on Elbaf currently. We're 1 year before the God Valley incident. We're going to find out, I guess, what the natural treasure that was on God Valley that piqued Fingerland Garling's interest in the first place. And we're also going to get to see the battle itself, which is great. Like I said, I definitely feel like if it's a stalemate at this point between Zebek and Harold, Emu has to be the tipping point. Like I said at the start, in my opinion, the biggest takeaway and the biggest reveal to me is what we got with the cover story. I don't know, but a reveal about Gekko Moria being related to the Kazuki clan is kind of a big deal, especially when we know Teach mentioned that Gekko Moria escaped from Hachinosu. So, is that going to play into the order of events here involving Teach? Whatever he does, I don't know. It's possible. It definitely gets you to wonder, doesn't it? Like I said, it kind of makes King Harold at this point seem disappointing, to the point where I want to see Ida, like I said, slap the shit out of and knock some sense into King Harold again. Because that's what altered his perspective in the first place, so it would make sense if that's where this goes. Like, granted, is this a case of Mosa being revealed as Ida and being the one that communicating with Loki, and that being a cause and effect of why we're going to get the reconciliation and having that more emotional moment be even more emotional? Or is it a case of something really bad happening to Ida during this entire incident, which would be horrible? But another question I have is where's the authority of Elbaf that was silhouetted that Oda highlighted? We may get this reveal, but I was kind of hoping that Oda might give us a back and forth between Elbaf and the Gorosei. But we may get that down the line anyway. But let me know what you guys think down below. It's hype time, for sure. That's going to do it for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. You guys know what to do if you enjoyed this review. Hit that thumbs up. I appreciate that. Like this video. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.